Hello everyone, this is Prakash here. In this particular video, we are going to look at the implementation of decision tree classifier with one example problem that is given with the library itself. That's called iris flower dataset. So this is a continuation of a series of the videos that we have been doing on various machine learning algorithms. So particularly for decision tree classifier and regressor, I have done the theoretical videos and the conceptual background behind it, and also the math intuition. So if you haven't happened to seen those videos, I definitely advise you to go ahead and watch those videos before looking into this one, because those are prerequisites that I assume into this video. So let's get moving. As we have discussed earlier, the iris flower dataset is basically a classification dataset that would the purpose of it is to actually classify the various flowers into different categories of species, right? There are three types of species that are available for the iris flowers. Given with the sepal length width and petal length width, we need to classify them into one of these criteria, one of these species. So that's the actual problem. So this might be very useful in the case of farming, whenever we have the yield and we are trying to classify it into the respective classes of the flowers, right? So this is the use case, right? And in this video, as we will try to import the data set, we will explore it from different perspectives. We will visualize how the data is spread just to get a feel of what are different classes and how are they spread with respect to input parameters and things like that. Then we will build the decision tree, which the algorithm would learn on the input data, and then we will evaluate the model performance, like how the model has been doing, what is the accuracy score, and there are some other metrics that we can look at it. And we'll also try to explore with various possible parameters, various possible options for the decision tree classifier algorithm, right? So without any further delay, let's get started. So the first step here is we are trying to import the required libraries. So as we know, pandas and numpy are the key libraries for reading the data and data pre-processing. So these two libraries, they come with if you have installed Anaconda distribution, they actually come with it. These are very, very useful for data science and machine learning as prerequisite libraries, right? And then the actual implementation of the algorithms is done by the sklearn, and sklearn has got different types of algorithms that it has implemented. Decision tree classifier is one of them, and it has the also data sets. It comes with a lot of built-in data sets that can be used to learn and experiment with various algorithms, right? So load_iris is the particular object that it exposes to load our data iris data set into the program, and then we can actually train the algorithm on top of that data, right? And there is something important called train test split, right? Before we do any algorithm training, we'll have to divide our data into training data and testing data. So this is also implemented by sklearn, and we have various metrics like confusion matrix and accuracy score. So these are the two that we will be using to evaluate our model, how good it is doing on our train data and test data. That is something that the algorithm has not seen while training. We'll try to test with it. So we'll see that down below. And we also have some important libraries for visualization of the data, right? Not the data, I'm sorry, it is actually the graph, right? The tree that the algorithm builds, so that can be visualized, that can be exported into an external file, so that we can visualize clearly. So these libraries, particularly GraphViz, is very, very useful for that. So we are going to work with that as well in this exercise, right? So now that we have seen the imports required, so let's go ahead and import the required data, right? So load_iris, this method would actually load the data into this iris object, right? So if you explore what the iris object contains, right? So this object basically has various attributes. So these attributes will give us a handle of the data, actual data, the feature names, the file name, where exactly this is located, and the target names and things like that. So we will use these attributes to load the required data, and we'll analyze it further, right? So we are loading this data and target into two different variables, x and y, and we are also converting it into a data frame so that we can visualize it better, right? So that's what we are doing through this piece of code. And then we are going to use the Seaborn libraries and Matplotlib to actually visualize different columns, different column combinations, along with species as the hue, right? The species here is the output categories, right? And then we will take each pair of feature values like sepal length, petal width, and sepal length, petal length, like that. So the combinations we'll be taking, and for that combinations, how are the hue values spread out, right? So that's what we're trying to visualize here. So clearly there are certain features, certain combination of features that are dividing these values very clearly, right? So this is exactly what the algorithm is also going to learn, right? The purpose that we are trying to visualize here is for us to understand whether there is such a pattern here, or this is not a worthy data to even go ahead and visualize, right? So clearly it is indicating, hey, there is some particular values here. Take this example, right? So this is actually petal length here, and this is sepal width here, right? So for these, we are very clearly seeing for some particular range of sepal width and petal length, we can clearly explain, we can classify setosa, right? And then for the other things, we may have different conditions, right? Different conditions based on which the data is falling in one or the other categories, right? That is what the decision tree is also going to infer. It is going to observe, it is going to try to divide the data based on different ranges and conditions, and then finally it arrives, hey, this might be this category or this category, right? So visually we have a clue, and we will feed this to the algorithm so that algorithm can learn practically, dynamically, and it will also it will also predict as we feed new data, right? So that's the purpose. So other than that, I think this visualization, we don't have to infer anything, unless we see that there is no relation at all. This is giving us confidence that we can go ahead and actually implement with these features, right? So now the next step is we are going to divide the data into train, test, split, right? So this algorithm, this particular library would help us, given with the input data, x data and y data, and the size of the testing that we need it. So we can actually give, like usually it's a norm that we give 25 to 30% as the testing data, and we could also spread it out. We can try with different proportion, maybe 0.2 or 0.1 for 20% or 10%, like that. And random state is basically for reproducibility. So if you give 30 every time, you will get the same split every time you run this. Otherwise this will be really random. Every time we run it, we get a different set of split, right? So for reproducibility, we can give any random, any integer value, and every time you run, you get the same output for that. So it's a good practice, whenever we're trying to demo it and we're trying to reproduce things, right? So that's about splitting the data. So once we split the data, now we come to the step of actually creating this model, right? For that, we use the decision tree classifier, the implementer from the sklearn, right? So this basically takes various arguments, which we will see, we can review it later, but by default it uses a Gini criterion, right? So we have seen that there is various loss functions which the algorithm would use to determine what is the best way to split the nodes, right? So Gini is one of those loss functions, and this is also a default loss function it uses. So even if we don't pass this parameter, that's fine. The algorithm would go ahead and implement it with Gini only, right? And min sample split. So this basically is telling the minimum number of samples that are required to split the node further, right? So we are saying you split it until you have 2 samples, minimum of until you have 2 samples, right? So that means if there are less than 2 samples, right? So that means 1 sample, right? So for 1 sample there is no need to split, but so that means we are actually trying to split it to the maximum possible level here. That's what this is indicating, but we could actually give it a little higher so that you don't have to split it to such a level, such a deeper level. And you could still infer the decisions based on probabilities, right? So you can we can see that, but ideally these are a couple of good parameters that we can give. So that way we are actually trying to build the decision tree object here, and then we are actually training it. We are fitting the model here, right? Here we have initialized the decision tree object, and with that we are calling the fit method with the x train and the y train data. So passing these two, the algorithm would learn, right? The algorithm would learn and build the model. And that model we could also plot it. So there is a method called plot underscore tree. So that will basically take this classifier object, and it will also pictorially represent it in our output here. So if I can run this really, so this is what it has learned about this. It has seen various samples, how it has split. This is a textual representation of it, and there is also a pictorial representation. So I know this is very small here. What we can do is we could also export this into a PDF, and we can see that. Maybe in the next steps I will show that. But right now what it has done is, given with our X and Y inputs, it has actually learned, it has built the model, and now it is ready to predict also, right? So we will see how to predict as well, but in the next steps. But as of this, we have been able to load the data, visualize the data, and we have divided into train and test combination, and we passed it to the algorithm, and we have built it with a actually clear defaults, right? These are basically the defaults. Gini is the default, and the min sample split is equal to 2 is also a default, meaning you are splitting it into the lowest possible level. So that's what has happened so far. Now what we are doing here, we are also using that classifier, and we are predicting it. We are predicting for what values? We are predicting for the test values, right? So remember, we have trained the model using X underscore train, right? So using that model, we are predicting with X underscore test subset of values. So these are new values that the algorithm has not seen, but now it is going to predict. So that's what we are going to do here, right? So we are predicting it, and the predicted values would come into Y underscore pred, right? So that's what we are doing here. Now with that predictions, we are going to see how well it has predicted, right? So how do we know that? So there are a couple of options. One is, we have Y underscore test. So Y underscore test is the actual Y values for these input test values, right? These are the input test value, and this is the output test value, right? So we'll pass that actual test values, actual output values, and the predicted output values into a function called accuracy underscore score. So this is actually, if you remember, we imported it from the sklearn metrics library. Accuracy score would basically take these two, and then it will give you an accuracy score, right? So as we can see here, this is predicting about 97% accuracy, which is actually pretty good. So either the data set is too clean, or we have actually gone to the deepest level. So I think this has actually given a really good accuracy score here. And also another way of visualizing it is there's something called as confusion matrix. We will pass the same parameters, Y test and Y pred. So what confusion matrix does is, for each classification here, if you can see, it is printing us 3 two-dimensional arrays, right? 3 elements within the two, each one being a two-dimensional array here. This is for each output class, right? We have 3 species, right? For the first species, this is the score. Now what does this score mean? I mean, this is not a score exactly, this is again confusion matrix. What this means is, let us say I have fed 26 samples where it is setosa, and it has predicted 26 times right out of 26, right? And for that particular setosa, did it predict any anything that it is predicted as not setosa? That is coming out here, right? So that is what it is indicating. So we haven't done any wrong predictions here. Now likewise, we will give an input which is not setosa, then 12 times, and the algorithm has predicted 12 times it is not setosa, right? So that is what basically this is. So anything diagonally it is actually having, it is actually representing, those are the correct predictions, right? So when we give setosa is equal to true, it predicted as true, and when we have setosa is false, it's predicted as false. So this indicates confidence for us, right? Now here we have seen that out of 28 setosa values that we have fed, 27 times it has predicted right, and 1 time it has predicted as not setosa. So that is that is where our model has not predicted right, but that is 1 out of 28, right? So you can visualize the percentage is a little bit lower, given that our accuracy is high, right? And same here, right? We have given 16 values as not setosa, but it has predicted 15 times as not setosa, but one time it in fact predicted as setosa. So that means it is a wrong prediction as well, right? So this is about the confusion matrix. So this also gives us a good view of how our model has done, right? So that is basically the way we actually take the input data and we build a model. We also use the predict method to actually predict with the given test data, and then we use accuracy and confusion matrix as options to actually visualize how our algorithm is doing, right? So that's one option of building the classifier, right? Now we can explore a little bit more parameters. So let's before we go and see for different other parameters, let's first explore the export the tree into a external file, and then maybe we can see how the tree has been built, right? So I've written a quick method here where we are passing a classifier as an argument and the file name as an argument, right? Given with these two arguments, this method would basically use a export underscore graph list. So export underscore graph list, basically what it does is it takes the classifier or the model that we have built above, and it will actually convert this into a format that we can export it. That format is called as dot format. So that's what we're trying to do with this tree.export graph list, and that data we can feed it into a library called graphviz.source. By feeding this dot data, it will give us a graph which we can render it into a file. So this is how the graphviz would given with a representation of a graphical data, it will be producing a very very nicely filled up graphs, right? So we can see that how it is in action. So now I'm calling this render PDF, the same method by passing the model that we built above and a PDF file where it should be actually exported. So let me run this. Okay, I think it is executed. So if I go now, I think this is just now it has been loaded. So this is the PDF file that it has generated. In fact, like, it has filled out all the values. So if you can see, we have given the feature names and we have given the target names. We want a filled as equal to true, and we want rounded is equal to true. So all these parameters have actually given a play here, and we are seeing those things, right? So it all started with 150 samples, if you remember, and then it has been taking a condition. It has measured the Gini value here, so everything would be reported, right? And then based on this condition, it is split into these two. In the previous video also, we have seen with the first condition itself, one class is already classified. So setosa is done here. So now our goal is to classify between the other two, versicolor and virginica, right? So there the Gini is gradually reducing. Here it is 0.667, here it is 0.5, and as you come down it is 0.167, 0.043. So here if you see, out of 54 values, 49 are versicolor. So that's what it is predicting for this node, right? Even if we stop at let's say depth 2, second depth itself we are stopping, we have a reasonable prediction here, right? Out of 54, 49 is versicolor, so we can actually go with that prediction. Of course it's less accurate, but still, instead of going too much deeper, sometimes it's always good to cut it off if we have a good amount of probability. So those kind of things we can actually see how do we control that. And the other one here on this side also, if you see, out of 46, 45 are virginica, so it is actually predicting it as virginica, right? So then it can go further down and it will take those decisions to actually, it has to go 2 more levels below, right, in order to come to a 100% accuracy. Here if you can see, here there are 2 out of 2 are virginica and 1 out of 1 is versicolor, right? So the more deeper we are going, the more the number of conditions we are building, the more we are overfitting. That means this only works for the training data, right? That is getting too specific to the training data. That is where we actually try to control this by saying, hey, you don't have to go too deep, we can cut it off at one particular level, so that our accuracy improves to testing data as well, right? Maybe in the training data you may not be 100% accurate. let us say you are 95 to 96% accurate in the training data, but for the testing data also, in which case it helps, right? So that you're not going too close on the training data. So that's how we actually export it, right? And moving further, we are trying to build a couple of other models with the same decision tree classifier. We're trying to see, as I was saying, we could control the depth, right? In this here, it has gone up to 5 levels, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the maximum depth it has gone till, right? So I'm trying to see, if we can control this and see how the model is going to do, right? So we are building 2 classifiers here like that with max depth 2 and max depth 3, and we're trying to fit again with those options. We're trying to build the models here, right? And then I'm also trying to render the PDF for those 2. But more importantly, we want to predict, right? So I'm trying to predict for the same X-test data. I'm predicting with both of these models that have been built, the one with depth 2 and the one with depth 3. We're trying to predict, and we are capturing them into the YPRED D2 and YPRED D3, right? So passing again those 2 things, YTest and YPRED D2, we are trying to print the accuracy score as well as the confusion matrix here, right? The same thing we are doing for YTest versus YTest D3 for the depth 3 accuracy score as well as confusion matrix. We are printing it here. So we can see that when the depth is 2, the accuracy score is 94%, and when the depth is 3, we have improved by 3%, right? And same is the case, let's just run it. I don't think we have run this. Let me print this here so that we get all those printed. Yes, there we go. So this one, for the depth 2, it is 94%, and we can see for every class how the predictions have been, and we can see here there are 2 incorrect predictions here and 2 incorrect predictions here. That's when 94% accuracy is there. And for the other one, for depth 3, we had 97% accuracy, and for the same we had only 1 incorrect prediction here and 1 incorrect prediction here, right? So that's on the testing data. So on the testing data, we have done almost 97% accurate here, which is pretty good. So I think it indicates that the model is clearly doing well, not only with training data but also with testing data, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much what we have. And what I'm doing here is, I'm just also trying to get all those YTest values and those predictions into one data frame, so that we can clearly see for the actual value and the depth 2 and depth 3 predictions, right? So those things I was trying to print it here, so we can see there are a couple of them where there are differences. For example here, right, the actual is 2, the depth 3 has predicted it as 2, but the depth 1 has predicted as 1. So this is where this is the depth 2 model has done wrong. So I think so there are a couple of minor differences, but otherwise, in general, both the models have been doing well, except a couple of predictions, right? Only 1 or 2 predictions is where this is out of almost like 37 to 40 samples, it is only having 1 or 2 incorrect predictions. I think that is still good in terms of the predictions, right? Alright, so I think that's pretty much what I have in this video. So mainly I just wanted to make sure we take this example problem and build the classifier, right? And then be able to predict with the new data, and also build the tree with different possible options, right? We have built with the max depth 3, and we have also seen how we can pass parameters like criterion, which was the loss function, and we have also measured how different classifiers that we have built with various parameters have done with respect to their accuracy scores and confusion matrix, right? So from now on, I think we can further explore. sklearn has a very good documentation on the decision tree classifier, and it explains very clearly on what are different parameters. Like criterion we have seen, Gini is one, and entropy is the other option. I know we haven't seen entropy, but we could also experiment by giving entropy and see how that does. Is that any better as we play with it, right? And splitter is basically, whether all the features would be used, or some features would be used at random for doing the splits, right? Like that, max depth, we have seen this. Minimum sample split, we have seen this. We can control the depth of growth using these parameters actually, right? So that would control the overfitting. And like that, we have minimum samples leaf, minimum weight fraction leaf. So there is if our data is not so well balanced, like in our case we had three different classes of data out of the 150 samples. If the data is not so well balanced, we could use weightage among them. There are a lot of other useful features within the algorithm, so you could explore further. And I will also come up with more videos on this for going through more advanced settings here for different types of problems. But more importantly, I want to do a video on decision tree regressor as the next one. And then we will see we will see if we can actually go through the much more complex problems, and we will explore this much more deeper, right? So that's all I have, friends, today. I hope you really like this video, and I'm really looking forward to do more such videos and interact with you. So if you like this material, please do share with your friends and whomever you think it is beneficial. And you have a good day. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.